Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to make mods for the game Space Engineers using Blender. In the description for this video, you should find a link to the example planter mod. If you're subscribed to that mod and you go to the folder shown on screen now, you should find this Blender file. So we'll start with our scene collections here, where we have our main visual model, our collision shape, and our build stages 1, 2, and 3. You will also have collections for level of detail models, as well as a level of detail model for the build stage. By default, you have 3 level of details and 1 build stage level of detail, but you can add more at any time by using the Create Collections button, or if you need to recreate these base set of collections, you can do that here with this button. In this example, we're going with the subtype ID of example planter. We're using a main scene type, so not a subpart or a character or an animation. We're set up for large grid. We can add our bounding box. So in this case, we are just going to occupy a single cube in this example. And then we have other parts that we can set up in Blender that we want to have a look at. Mirror mode, we can turn this on to have a look at how different mirrored states will appear in the game. So if you're doing something particularly complicated, or you want to make sure that something appears in a particular orientation when mirrored, we can adjust that here. For instance, I would probably want this tree to be rotated 180 degrees. And then by turning the mode off again, that information is saved, ready for export. Mount point modes. So here we can have the mounting positions that are allowed in game. So in this case, we only have the one small mounting point on the base, as that's the only point of contact. But we can add areas and scale them if we want to. We can have more than one area on a part if we want to make complicated mount points for an unusual shape. But I only want to keep the one on the base here. Next thing on our list is icon render. So here we have camera view, and this is going to allow us to render out a nice Space Engineers style render ready for use in game. If we don't like the blue and we want to go with a full color render, that's an option as well. Choosing the icon mode will activate every scene you have suppressed. It's an unfortunate byproduct, but it doesn't damage anything. Now we have the exciting part, the exporting settings. So from here you can export all scenes. So if you have multiple scenes contained within the same file, you can, with one click, export them all, or only export the scene that you're currently engaged in. You have the option of exporting materials, which will allow you to put materials that can be available in the asset manager. That's a more advanced topic. Then we have the specific options for exporting the model. So you can delete the temporary files. So there are a number of files that are made along the way before you get to the MWM file. Having this highlighted will delete those files once the program is finished. Then you have the data SBC file. You can either set that not to create one, to update the existing one, or to create a new one each time. I tend to like to leave it on as update, as it'll give me all the information that I've just set in mount point and mirror, and compile that into a very handy to use SBC file that can be used more than once. But you may want to save and iterate those files, so creating a new one each time can be an advantage, or you might not want it to be created at all because you're planning on doing that manually yourself. Here we have, separate from the grid size that we set for the file, we have what size we're planning on exporting. So we're just going to export large to large. If you export large to small, you can achieve some scaling, or you can export large to medium, where you won't get any scaling. The file export will adjust the box size so that it's suitable for small grid, but on a large grid scale. I'm just sticking with a simple large grid export here. Underneath this, we have import settings. So one of the things I want to do is I want to change this tree. I'm going to delete the tree we have there. And I'm going to import an FBX. What you want to do is you want to navigate to where the mod SDK files have been stored. And from there you can find the FBX files to import. In this case, I'm going to import an alien leaf tree just to make a slightly different planter. Oop. There you go. That's come through nicely, complete with materials. If you wanted to import a block or a complete set of blocks, using the complete import function will import the main model, the corresponding build stages to that model, and the LOD stages for those models with one button click import. So by going to the parent model, the add-on will find all the associated files and import them all, so you can have them all contained within one file, ready to edit and make whatever modifications it is that you're planning on making. So here, because I had that collection selected, it's put the tree in there. We'll just drag that up, put it here. We're a bit big for our planter, so I'm going to scale everything down. Oops. Just until we get to a more realistic size for our planter. Just tuck it into bounding box a bit. I'm going to have a bit of the visual mesh sticking out of the bounding box, but I think that's going to be okay for this decorative example. Our soil has moved a little bit as well, so we'll just pat that back down. There we go. Now we have an alien tree in our planter instead. I'm going to change our subtype. Here we are, example planter. I'm going to change this to alien planter. And you'll see when I've done that, it's changed the name of the scene. It's changed the name of the collections. It's just a good verification that the add-on has recognized that you've changed this. So I'm going to try export this. I've got a mod location here where I happen to have kept my files, but best if you put your file somewhere where you can easily remember it. I'm just going to export current scene. So now I can go to the folder where I've exported that to. In this case, I've got this little example planter folder. Here I've got two folders that have been created, models and data. In models here, I've got my alien planter. And in the data folder, I've got that sandbox configuration file there, which contains the information about my model. A bit small on this resolution, but the add-on just outputs a basic cube block definition for you to start with. You can get going straight away with testing your model in game. What I'm going to do is here in my app data folder, under mods for Space Engineers, I've created a folder called Alien Planter. And here I can take these two folders, data and models, copy them straight in there, and then open up the game. Now in game, I'm going to create a new custom game. Now because I'm testing blocks, I'm actually going to go with empty world. In this particular instance, creative, but for a lot of time when I want to test blocks, I go for a survival style game, and then I enable creative mode tools. This allows me to see build stages more easily, inventories more easily, and things like that. Then we go to add this mod. Because it's a local mod, it'll come up with a little house symbol. And then a little tip, if we go into advanced world settings, we come down an asteroid amount. If we switch asteroids off, and then turn some other things off, you know, we're not going to use weather, bounty contracts, respawn ships, a bunch of stuff that you can turn off just to make the game load faster. Because when you're testing blocks, one of the things you're going to do is reload the game a lot. Space Engineers doesn't like to make adjustments on the fly, so you have to reload the world. Here we are. First things first, I'm just going to make a little platform here. And I'm going to look for our alien planter. Now, we haven't set up any of the G menu characteristics yet. We haven't given it its proper icon. So we have to search. You see here we've got display name alien planter. That's displaying the information here in the display name. Here it just says alien planter, and we don't have any localization for it, so it's just giving us the raw text string. So we can just drag that down to our toolbar. And there we have it. We've created a block and it's in game. Things we can do, we can check to make sure it's got a good collision. Seems to be a good collision. We can get a grinder out. Have a look at those build stages. Make sure everything seems the way that it should do. Quite a nice alien tree. So to fix that icon, we're going to turn on icon render mode. Going to go to the camera view. Give ourselves the full size. Zoom in a little bit. Tweak the height, position, rotation of the camera with these sliders. As I mentioned before, whether or not you're using a color overlay, the format that's allowed. Now DDS is the best format for saving imagery for Space Engineers. It loads much faster. It's much more performant on memory. And then if we click render, we get a little preview come up. And we should have in our folder a icon. Now in our mod folder, what we're going to do is create a separate folder called textures. And we're going to put that file in there. Then in our SBC file, we're going to edit the location of our icon. We're going to change that to alienplanter.dds and save that. We're going to change the description. So the display name will no longer be alien planter display name. And we'll give it a description. Funky house plant. And these fields can be anything you like. They're not prescriptive in any manner, that you can fill in however you want. The best thing to do, obviously, would be to use those localization features and set up a localization file that will allow you to input translations. That will obviously increase the accessibility of your mod being used by those who don't speak English. Now then, back in the game, we can look for our alien planter. Here we see it now has the icon. Drag that into our menu slot. And it's perfectly the same as it was before. Well, that's essentially the basics on how to get a model from Blender into game. In the next tutorial, I'll give you a little more information on how to give your item some function. We're going to look at how to make interior lights and how to make a small storage box. So I hope you all look forward to that, and I'll see you in the next video.